She was featured on the cover of Forbes Africa magazine before the age of 30. She was selected as a Fast Company Maverick and named Entrepreneur for the World by the World Entrepreneurship Forum. Rapelang Rabana is founder and CEO of Rekindle Learning, one of the most innovative companies on the continent. She's going to show us how to turn innovation into profit.
The company I co-founded with my classmates, Diego, built some of the world's earliest voice-over IP applications. In simple terms, predecessors to what we now know as Viber and WhatsApp calls. We literally taught ourselves everything that we needed to know about how to build the software, how to run a business online. We literally Googled our way to success. I'm now working on my second business, Rekindle Learning, exploring how we use technology to more efficiently build skills, both in companies and universities. Our most recent product is helping first-year students improve their English proficiency, which addresses one of the major tenets of the fees must fall movement, to make tertiary education more inclusive by overcoming the language barrier. Looking back at this all, I also still wonder how it all came to be. Because I know that I was never the smartest person in the room, and there were always people with more social and financial capital than me. So in trying to understand the relevance of my story, the purpose of my journey, I'm confronted with the simple truth that the way we understand how value and success is created in the world today is changing. It is less about having something that nobody else has, but increasingly, it's about knowing who you are, what you have, and how you're going to use that to your advantage. All I ever tried to do was to follow the rhythm of my own soul, and I had no idea it would take me so far. I believe that greater self-awareness has been quintessential to everything I've been able to achieve. Because you see, innovative entrepreneurial thinking isn't something you pluck from out there in the air, isn't something that you get from some external source. Our society teaches us to spend a lot of time looking out there for success, looking at people like me. But the truth is that to drive yourself to your full potential requires you to build on your internal awareness and wisdom. Let me show you how greater awareness can help you build a particular business trait, the ability to excel and be innovative. You see, being more self-aware enables you to do things that you are genuinely interested in, things that you're authentically connected to. And that authentic connection is the crucial thing that enables you to tap deeper into an issue, to see new innovative angles to a problem, deeper than anybody else, so that you can gain insights or aha moments that ultimately deliver competitive business advantage. Renowned investor and entrepreneur of Silicon Valley, Paul Graham, said, "If you look at the way successful founders have had their ideas, it is generally the result of an external stimulus hitting a prepared mind." The verb that you want to be using with respect to coming up with ideas is not think up, but notice. So you see, it is not an exercise in intelligence. It is an exercise in awareness. Paul goes on to say that whoever you are, you have a sum total of life experiences that have prepared you to notice the opportunities around you. So you see, you are the distinguishing factor in how you see the world. And greater awareness enables you to unearth that unique perspective. It enables you to separate who you are from the circumstances that you face, so that you see those circumstances as changeable, movable, non-permanent. This is not airy-fairy feel-good stuff. This mindset is the primary source of value creation and competitive advantage today. I believe that every person has the internal wisdom to be able to create value. And in these turbulent socioeconomic times, this is a critical realization for every person, for every employee. Because in the absence of believing that you personally can create value, you fall into a terrible mindset. Out of the necessity of your own survival, you end up believing that value is given. through donations, grants, entitlement, undue favor. Or worse yet, you end up believing that value is taken through force, aggression, theft, fraud, corruption. And the world can ill afford these views. The inside of innovation and entrepreneurship is that you have the internal wisdom. You are the innovation. Thank you.
Rapelang, welcome to GURUS.
Thank you.
I thought only Steve Jobs could be innovative and Bill Gates and Rapelang. I didn't realize we all could. Can we?
Oh, we can.
We?
We can. I think we're going to see a huge wave in the world where lots of young people are going to use that experiential wisdom, that internal wisdom that they see from being in the circumstance of the problem to come up with innovative solutions. And I didn't necessarily know this was entirely possible, but I remember earlier days in the beginning of our first business, I watched a talk by one of the Skype founders, and I asked him a question about why they were not doing voice over IP on cell phones. And he implied that it wasn't relevant and it wasn't important. And I thought, wow, that is the value of perspective. It's because you're not sitting in a third world environment with no bandwidth and not sitting on your computer. You wouldn't imagine that the cell phone should be the primary place to do calls.
And you saw that. And in fact, you used that insight
journey,
in your own
business. That's
business.
how we started that first business.
Isn't that beautiful? And I love this idea of awareness. There is this notion, Kevin Dunbar is one of the pioneers of innovation research. When we think it's this one scientist staring under a microscope, but what he found in his research was that kind of took the big brother approach to innovation, put all these cameras around a laboratory, found that the best ideas came when people were connecting, talking, sharing, listening to one another.
Yes,
right?
yes, definitely. I think, and I work with a lot of young entrepreneurs or people running projects trying to come up with ideas. And I try to discourage them from, coming up with the smarter sounding thing, looking at what's happening in the industry and what's the most popular or fashionable thing. I'm like, that's not going to be relevant. Let's look at the journey you've traveled, the way you've lived, how you've lived, the things you've seen, because that experience is the thing that brings you your unique insights.
And that's entrepreneurship, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you actually see the crossroads between entrepreneurship and innovation. I think it was Thomas Edison who said, I never patented or invented anything that I didn't think of in terms of solving some problem that I'd identified.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's why they say, trouble and difficult things is the mother of all innovation.
Right.
So you've got to relish those tough experiences. And I think often, given the circumstances that so many young people grow up in, and they get into a job or start working there, as soon as possible they want to divorce themselves from all of that prior history and move up in the world. Whereas you're divorcing yourself from your unique perspectives. You're divorcing yourself from your quintessential value.
That is so important, isn't it?
Because
critical. And sadly, the corporate world tends to do this, isn't it? I've got my position, I've got my cubicle, I've got my job description, and now I follow through and I pick up my salary at the end of the month.
And we forget where we came from. We don't want to think about it, whereas you've probably got insights that other people in that room don't have.
So how do we stimulate that kind of innovative thinking? I mean, we hear about Google where at some point they were providing, I think, a day a week where you could just...
they still do that.
Do they still do that?
Yes.
Where you can then just spend time working on projects, 90% of which will not come to fruition.
Yes.
But it's that 10% that could be the game
those
changer.
Those ecosystems are pretty critical. And a couple of South African companies, I think, have done well to incentivize young people to come up with ideas. And if you come up with an idea, you can share in the upside and things. But outside of the ecosystem, I think we've got much more work to do on the psyche. Because if you don't fundamentally believe that, you think of these things and you brush them aside because it doesn't seem important or it is not appropriate right now or there's more important things to do, instead of tuning into those questions, into those curiosities, until you start recognizing that these things that keep coming to you are your sources of insight. And if you're not feeling confident in yourself, you probably just brush them aside and defer to someone who sounds smarter.
Right.
That's the real challenge that we're facing.
Us, the gurus. And that is something, and I'm passionate about this show, but for me, the concept of gurus is that there's a guru inside every single one of us,
100%,
right? There is
100%.
genius inside every single one of us. And I think your point is sometimes you've just got to give people permission to unleash that genius. To say, you know what, you've got great ideas because you're a living human being having experience.
Exactly.
Share them because those ideas can benefit others. There's people that have the same problem you
100%.
have.
And that lack of confidence, that absence of belief that you have those insights and can act on those things to create value is the biggest challenge we face today.
So how do we meet that challenge?
I wonder.
How do we?
But this is why I keep talking and I keep trying to tell people, but sure, it's tough.
Well, you've got an audience. Yeah, you've got an audience. But tell this audience, tell us, Rapelang, what do we do to cultivate this ethos in our schools, in our workplace, in our world?
You know, when you say schools, the first thing that comes to mind is that often in these entrepreneurship projects at school, you're put in a corner and you're told to brainstorm and come up with the smartest sounding idea. So we use very inorganic approaches to these things. And this is what begins to alienate people from the concept of creating ideas and creating businesses, because you think you're taught it as an academic exercise, as opposed to saying, you know, what are the things that keep coming to your mind? What are the things that really, really bother you? What do you think about first thing in the morning, or when you sleep, or when you talk to your friends, when there's no pressure, financial pressure, social pressure? What are you drawn to? Those are the things that you might want to start exploring more. So I think our whole approach, even in MBA schools, is still too mechanical. And you start creating very intelligent people, but not people that are authentically connected to what they're doing. So they're not going to have the depth of insight from the sum total of their life journey. They're not going to have the depth of commitment to push it through because it's not something that was personal to them. So I would say that's the philosophy we have to attack most. It's not an academic, mechanical exercise.
So we've really got to get people out of the school environment. And, you know, you mentioned fees must fall. I mean, one of the things that I think is so tragic is that people think that is the key to success in adding value. When we know some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, you know, the world's run by dropouts, right? Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison. These guys didn't sit waiting for somebody to shove a syllabus down their throat. They went, darn it, there's a real issue here I need to solve. And interesting how money wasn't the motivator, right? The Google guys they wanted to sell Google for $1 million.
Exactly.
They would have, if had somebody given them $1 million, they would have done it. They said, great, now we can do what we love.
Yeah, they were motivated by a belief that the world should be a certain way. And those are the things that can drive you and carry you for years.
And that is what is going to change the world. And that is what we need in Africa, right? We have 1.1 billion opportunities, 1.1 billion people to come up with great ideas to uplift and transform. And that's the way to do it.
100%.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.